Welcome, friends, to Mysteries with Divina. I am your host, Divina Shea, and today we're going to be talking about another guy named Joe. Joseph Douglas Ball. And we have some parallels between this Joe and the last Joe, Joseph Brigham, that is. Aside from having the same first name, they were also serial killers, and to top it off, they both liked to feed their victims to animals. Now, isn't that nice? These two could have been friends. Born January 7th of 1896 in Elmendorf, Texas. His father, Frank X. Ball, built Elmendorf, not to be confused with founded. That would have been Henry Elmendorf. But he moved away and became mayor of San Antonio. Now, Frank X. Ball borrowed some money and built a gin to process the crops. The cotton crops, that is. Now, Frank Ball eventually, became rich. He started buying and selling farms during the Great Depression. He owned probably every store in town. He ended up having 8 children, and good old Joe was the second of the 8 children. And most of them became pillars of the community. But I guess there's always one rotten apple, now isn't there? His real talent was shooting. His nephew Bucky claims that he could shoot a bird off of a telephone line with a pistol from the bumper of his Model A Ford. I guess that sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? In 1917, he joined the Army to fight in World War I. Now, friends and family claim that this changed him. He came back a different man. And I think that's quite understandable. War is no small thing. Now, others were fighting to keep their family safe, and he was fighting for the freedom to come back home and murder people. He was honorably discharged in 1919. He returned home, and he becomes a bootlegger. Of course. If you're going to start a life of crime, you should start small. He started by selling whiskey to people out of a big 50-gallon barrel. In about the mid-1920s, he hired a young handyman to help with things he needed around the house and his business. This young man was called Clifton Wheeler. He's going to be important later. Poor guy was scared of him. It said Ball would shoot at his feet to make him dance the jitterbug. Prohibition ended in December 5th, 1933. Ball opened up a tavern at that time called the Sociable Inn on Highway 181. The layout was 2 bedrooms in the back, bar in the front, room to play cards. Nothing too crazy, you know. At some point after this, he went to nearby low water areas, where alligators were occasionally seen, and caught himself about 5 and put them in a concrete pool behind the tavern. He strung wire about 10 feet high around the pool, and the alligators became part of the attraction of the place. People would get drunk, throw an animal in the pool, and watch the alligators go after it. Now, doesn't that just sound like fun? Ball hired women to wait tables and attend to his guests. But let's get into the murders now. So, around 1934, Ball met and fell for a Minnie Gotthard, also known as Big Minnie. Said to be a bossy, displeasing, obnoxious person, but Ball really liked her. She ran the bar with him and Wheeler. The next barmaid to arrive on the scene and capture Ball's attention was Dolores Buddy Goodwin. Even though she was 15 years younger than him, she fell in love with him. Even after he threw a bottle at her that hit her in the face and left her with a scar that ran from her eye to her neck. How you could fall in love with somebody after doing something like that, I don't know. By this time, 1937 that is, Miss Hazel Shatsy Brown had also started working at Ball's, but she was only 22. That summer, the summer of 1937, Big Minnie disappeared. Ball told people she got pregnant with a black baby and had skipped town and went to a hospital in Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, Corpus Christi, I looked it up on the map, and it was actually quite a ways away. At least a couple hours it looked like it would have been. So I can't imagine, oh, my water breaks. Let me go to a hospital. It's a couple hours away. Better hurry. Anyway, she must have left in a hurry because she left all her clothes behind. In September, Ball married Buddy, and after he did, he shared a secret with her. He told her he took Minnie to the beach and killed her so she wouldn't be a problem for them anymore. So, Like any gossiping woman would, Buddy went straight to Shatsy and told her what happened to Minnie. She even told her a couple of times. I'm guessing that the situation might have been gnawing at her a little bit. You're a newlywed and you find out your husband offed another lady so that he could be with you. January of 1938. Buddy's left arm gets cut off, and the whole town was talking. They were sure that Ball had cut it off in a fit of rage, or he fed it to the alligators, or that she got too close and they ripped it off her body. Wrong. She lost her arm in a car accident. April of 1938, Buddy disappears. Shocker. I'm surprised she didn't disappear sooner. She should have left as soon as she found out he killed somebody. Anyway, by then, Ball was dating Shatsy. And then she disappears too. So I'm sorry. Give me a minute here. So you're going to tell me that this guy's wife tells her that he murdered another woman and she kept working there? Why? Why would she do such a thing? She was asking to get murdered. That's all I'm saying. She was looking to die. Because somebody tells me that my boss killed somebody, I'm leaving. I'm going to go work for somebody else. But I am leaving because why would I want to die? But I don't know. I do not know what she was thinking. So September 23rd of 1938 rolls on by. An old man approaches the Bexar County Deputy Sheriff John Gray. Told Tim about a foul-smelling barrel covered in flies that Joe Ball had left behind his sister's barn. And it smelled like there was something dead inside. Who would have thought? The next day, Gray and Deputy John Clivenhagen drove out to the barn, but the barrel was gone. They drove to the bar about 12 p.m. and talked to Ball, who denied knowing anything about it. When they went back to the barn, Joe Ball's sister confirmed the old man's story. She must have seen the barrel. Maybe the smell got to her. Who knows? The deputies decided that was enough to take Ball in for questioning in San Antonio. Ball asked if he could first be allowed to have a beer and close down his place. The sheriffs agreed and returned to the bar. Ball got a beer, took a few sips, went to his register, opened it, pulled out a .45 from under the counter. He waved it at the police, and Clivenhagen yelled, "Don't," as he reached for his own pistol. But it was too late. Ball pointed the gun at his heart, pulled the trigger, and fell to the floor. Dead. 4 other deputies arrived on the scene to check the place out. Of course, they checked the gator pond first, and they were surrounded by rotten meat. They also found an axe matted with blood and hair, and there were other disappearances that came to the mind at that time as well. 2 barmaids, a 16-year-old boy who hung out at Joe's, etc. But then Wheeler, who had been taken by sheriffs to San Antonio, spilled the beans. Shatsy had fallen for somebody else. Shocker. A bar customer with a home and a good job. She wanted out. Ball wouldn't let her. So she threatened to tell the police about Big Minnie. And so he killed her. About 3 miles from town on a bluff, some 300 feet from San Antonio River, he began to dig, and blood bubbled up in the dirt, and the odor became unbearable. He pulled up 2 arms, 2 legs, and then a torso. The smell was so bad that sightseers ran in all directions, heaving and upchucking. The head was found by another campfire, and after carefully sifting, cops found the jawbone, some teeth, and some pieces of skull. So the story that Wheeler told police. After a night of heavy drinking, Ball asked Wheeler to load up the car with blankets and beer. Of course. How could he do this without alcohol? Joe had a saw, an axe, a post hole digger with him, and a pistol. They went to his sister's barn, stopping along the way to drink, and then picked up the 55-gallon iron barrel, which they took to the river. Ball forced the Wheeler at gunpoint to dig a grave, and they opened the barrel. And out came Shatsy's body. Wheeler at first refused to help Ball dismember her. Ball got so angry when one of her hands got in the way of sawing off her head that Wheeler reached over and held Brown's hand and then helped further, holding her arms and her legs while Ball sawed. Oh my goodness. What an inconvenience. Her hand falls in the way of him sawing off her head. Oh my Lord. So sorry for him. Poor guy. They each got sick to their stomachs, so they drank some more beer and then buried the corpse. They threw her head and her clothes on a campfire and then sat around drinking beer and then drove back to the bar. The previous June, Ball told Wheeler to pack the Model A coupe and be sure to stow plenty of whiskey and beer, and then he took Minnie and Wheeler to Ingleside near Corpus Christi. Ball found a secluded area and after some swimming, a lot of drinking, asked Minnie to take her clothes off. Wheeler made himself scarce, but when Ball called for more whiskey, Wheeler noticed that Ball had his pistol by his side. Ball pointed off in the distance, and when Minnie turned her head to look, he shot her in the temple. Ball said he had no choice. She was pregnant, and he was seeing Buddy. Okay, so the lie he told everybody was not so far from the truth. She was pregnant, but it was his baby. They buried her in the sand and drove back to Elmendorf. Police officers questioned Wheeler about the other women, but Wheeler didn't say a word about anybody else. They found a packet of letters as well as a scrapbook with photos of dozens of women, and this led police to believe that maybe these other women were also victims of Ball. The San Antonio papers wrote of the disappearances of more than a dozen barmaids, including somebody named Stella, who had a fight with Ball about Minnie. Exactly what that fight was about, I'm not sure. Cops also thought that he was selling drugs, but that was not true. 3 days after Ball's suicide, the police began digging in the sand 4 miles southeast of Ingleside. They took heavy machinery, hired local laborers, and people with nothing better to do. Literally hundreds of them came to watch. I'm sorry, but you will not catch me watching people dig up a body. I just could not. You know what? Local merchants actually set up a stand and began selling cold drinks to these people. I mean, this was just a whole spectacle. On October 14th, they found the remains of Minnie, well reserved in the deep, cold sand. Police located Buddy in San Diego, where she fled to be with her sister. Well, I guess at least there was one smart woman out of these three. She left. How intelligent. 2 weeks later, police were bringing her back to San Antonio, and on the way they stopped in Phoenix and found one of the women listed as missing from the tavern. Buddy said that Wheeler had told her that the night that Shatsy died, she had accused Ball of killing Buddy, just like he killed Minnie. She continued to badger and nag him about the situation until he flew into a rage and hit her with his pistol, which killed her. And then he shot her too, just to make sure. The alligators actually went to the San Antonio Zoo. How nice for them. Wheeler received 2 years in jail as an accessory, and he got out, opened his own bar in town, but soon left and was never heard from again. So, that is pretty much the end of the facts that we have, right? Now, Mr. Ball's story has been taken to great heights since it occurred because it was such a spectacle, you could say. But they actually never found any evidence of him feeding anybody to his alligator, so that is more so part of his myth. They, as I mentioned before, found the raw meat, but they never found any human flesh, bones, or any of that sort of thing. Now, could he have cleaned it? Sure. But if he was using that as his disposal method, then why would he go through all the trouble of burying his victims or hacking them up with a saw? It just doesn't make sense. So, my money is on that he actually never fed anybody to his alligators, and that was just people wanting to have something to talk. You know what I mean? But that, my friends, is where Joe Ball's story ends. Did you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments. But before I let you go, we have a riddle that you, I'm sure, are waiting to hear the answer to from last week. Ladies and gentlemen, the answer to the riddle of last week was he stood on a block of ice and put the noose around his neck, and once the ice melted, he was hung, and all that was left was a puddle of water on the floor. Now, for this week's riddle, we have, one winter day, there was a man standing in the middle of someone's front yard. The person stayed there for several weeks without moving, and the owner of the yard didn't mind. Eventually, the man left. Who was he? I'll let you know next week. Alrighty, guys, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you next time.